Sup plant nerds? I'm Krista from Botanical Bird, and today I wanted to talk about different plant terminology. So put on your glasses and let's go to plant school. The first realm of vocabulary I wanted to talk about was parts of a plant. And these are my boyfriend's glasses, and he has very bad vision, so I can't see with them at all. So I'm taking them off. Okay, so first thing, a leaf. I'm pretty sure we all know what a leaf is, but it's these beautiful, soft, teardrop, not always teardrop shaped, but these are teardrop shaped growths at the end of a stalk. Next, a stem. And I actually was getting stem and petiole confused, so I'm just gonna take these all out of here just so I can show you different parts. So here's a good example. This right here is the stem, right? It's like the main connection point for different leaves of a plant. The petiole is the stalk that connects the leaf to the stem. So I was thinking I would have called this a stem too, but this is actually a petiole. Next, the roots. They're the things that grow out of the stem that go into the soil that allow the plant to soak up water and nutrients. Some plants have aerial roots, and those are little roots, if you can see right above this finger. They're roots that can grow out of the stem that's not in the soil, and they're kind of searching for something to like grab onto. And so not every plant has aerial roots, but many, I believe they're called epiphytes, do, and those are plants that grow on other plants. So in its natural habitat, you might find this plant growing on a tree because it can connect itself or like attach itself to the tree with its aerial roots. Awesome. The next one is the node, but it's basically where the petiole meets the stem. So this right here, that is a node. I'm gonna hold it up closer. That's a node, and it's where, like I said, where the petiole meets the stem. So that is the node, as I said. Next, I want to talk about different things that your plants might have on their leaves. So I always talk about variegation, and it's when there's different coloring on the leaves. The base color of this leaf is probably this dark green, right? And then the like accent color is the light green. So this leaf, I could say, is variegated. This whole plant, it's a variegated plant. So when I say variegation, I'm referring to the different colors on the leaves of a singular plant. And not every plant is variegated. So this is a Peperomia obtusifolia variegata, meaning it's a variegated Peperomia obtusifolia. This plant exists that's not variegated, and so the leaves are just completely that dark green. But my personal preference is I generally gravitate towards the variegated plants. So just so you know, that's what variegation is. Next is fenestration, and that's when there are slits or holes in the leaves of a plant. So this is actually a new leaf on this Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. I was very happy. And so it has fenestrations or slits. Holes might have a different word. I'm not exactly sure. Next, I want to talk about different materials for plants. Like when you're potting up a plant, the different materials you might use. Oftentimes people refer to the soil as substrate, and that's basically the medium in which you are potting your plant. All right, so here I have several different substrates or additions that you might make into your soil mix for different plants. So we will start all the way back on this other side. And here is coco coir, and this is kind of just like dirt, but I believe it's made out of coconut husk, but it's very absorbent, and so that's often like one of the main bases of the soil mix I make. This is orchid bark, which is just different pieces of bark, and it's important because it kind of helps make the soil mix chunkier, and so that water can drain through it better, so then your roots don't sit in too much water. This is sphagnum moss, and sometimes people use this in propagations of different plants because it really absorbs a lot of water. You can kind of soak it in water and it absorbs it really well, but then it can also dry out really well. So you might add this into your mix or have the majority of your substrate be sphagnum moss.
This is pumice, and you'll often hear pumice or perlite. I prefer pumice because it's harder. It's basically just like different rock, but perlite is, I believe, like volcanic rock or something, and so you can like break it apart, and it's a lot airier, whereas pumice, you can't, it's very dense, you can't break it. And I've heard, I haven't experienced it, but I've heard that if you use perlite, after you water your plant enough, the perlite will just kind of rise to the surface, and you don't want that. You want it to stay in the soil. So that's why I use pumice. And this is horticultural charcoal. And basically it just, I'm not sure if it absorbs water or wicks it away. Those are opposites, but it once again helps break up the soil so water can drain through, and it allows more oxygen into the soil.
Next, I want to talk about some phenomena that can happen to your plant. So there's something called root rot, and I will put a picture of it here of a zoom in of some roots. Root rot is when roots of a plant stay too wet for too long, and it causes them to rot. Roots are kind of some are chunky, some are kind of stringy, but generally you want them to be white, yellow, or orange are healthy colors for roots. If they are black and mushy, that generally means that the plant has root rot. And once the roots rot, it's really hard for them to carry water and nutrients to the rest of the plant. So generally, root rot can be a death sentence for plants, but there are ways to try to revive a plant if it has root rot. Next, you often hear about a plant that is root bound, and I will put another picture of a root bound plant right here. And root bound or pot bound refers to when the roots of a plant grow sufficiently that they're kind of like taking up most of the space in the pot. So they might be kind of all wrapped around inside. They could be sticking out through the drainage holes. So that's kind of like there's so many roots in the pot that there's not a lot of soil from which the plant can get nutrients. So that is root bound or pot bound. Then sunburn. And sunburn is when you have a plant outside or anywhere really that gets too much sun, and it causes the leaf to burn just like our skin. And I'll put a picture of a sunburned plant right here. So basically, if a plant needs more, like less direct light than what it's getting, or giving it too much light, too much direct light, it can cause the leaves to burn. Then a word that I also use a lot is propagate or propagation. And that is when you take one plant and you cut it and make more baby plants out of it. There are two methods for this. One is water propagation, like I showed you with these cuttings here. I cut the plant and I stuck it in water. So it's propagating, it's growing roots in this water. Another way is to propagate in soil.
So here we have two different types of soil propagations. For some plants, you will take off the leaves and put them in soil so that they can root, and eventually the old leaf will die off, and then the new leaf will be its own little baby plant. And then for other sorts of plants, you will take some stem with a node and plant it in the soil so it can grow new roots and it establish itself as a plant. I won't get into which plants you do either technique with, because that could be a whole nother video, but I just wanted to explain that within soil propagation, there's two different methods.
Another term that you might hear is aerating the soil. And that's when you take something like my knitting needle and you kind of stab the soil to break it up and allow more oxygen to get to the roots, because the water gets compacted when you water a plant many times in a row, and that will kind of suffocate the roots, and that's not good. You want the water to be able to flow freely through the pot. So if you aerate your soil frequently, that helps promote root growth and then the rest of your plant to grow also. That is it. So, fellow plant nerds, I hope that this was very informative for you. And if you have any questions about any of the terms I talked about, feel free to comment below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I'm at botanical_bird, or subscribe on YouTube. I am Botanical Bird, 2 different words. And don't forget, I'm rooting for you. Bye.